Welcome back, my friends, to episode 7 of Beyond Bricks and Mortar. The following is a conversation with Chase Landow. Now, Chase is someone that I particularly appreciate spending time with. The way he operates his business, the way he communicates with clients, the way he thinks about this business is with absolute class and elegance. Now, we spent about 30 minutes together until I realized that there was a technical issue with the microphone and that we weren't recording. Fortunately, though, the best parts of this episode followed that little debacle. Chase and I exchanged stories of some of the more crazier things we've seen in the business over the years. We talk about our coming up in real estate, and we talk about the time that it really takes to develop success in the real estate business. Chase has done deals with a wide array of clients, some of the most notable names, including celebrities and powerful figures. Now, recently, Chase and I sold a townhouse together at 159 East 61st Street. That's a townhouse that sat on the market for 15 months before we eventually located a buyer that paid over the asking price. And while our styles of work are extremely different, I truly appreciated the opportunity to work alongside someone who approaches the business with the level of class and elegance that he does. For anyone looking to enter into real estate, for anyone who's already in real estate, I think you will truly appreciate this conversation. And if you're not in real estate at all, you will really appreciate the stories that we exchange on this forum. For those of you who are new here, welcome. Please remember to like and subscribe, and there are new episodes of Beyond Bricks and Mortar every single Wednesday. So, without further ado, my good friend, Chase Landow. In October, you rented a penthouse at 527 West 27th Street to Bad Bunny, according to the press at least, for $150,000 a month. How did that deal take shape?
And again, I can't confirm or deny, right, before I say anything. It was just one of those transactions, right time, right place.
Yeah.
But I can say since that person may have moved out if they were the tenant, we have rented it again for $150,000 per month.
Wow.
So again, it comes down to right place, right time.
Wow.
And I find, interestingly enough, since Airbnb has really been ejected from the New York market, people are really willing to pay up for short-term rentals.
Yes.
And I find it fascinating. I don't know. I would much rather be in a hotel for $150,000 per month.
They're not really so common anymore, the short-term rentals, I find.
No, at all.
Like when I first entered the business, I was renting furnished apartments. That was like my start. That really doesn't exist anymore. There's like a couple of companies that do it, but the quality's lousy.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I think the rental inventory on a whole right now is pretty lousy.
Yeah.
I have a client who is just wrapping up a tour. They're not a musician. And we are struggling to find anything to rent.
Well, you have a few of these musicians.
They have a big budget. And I'm like, man, it's like a comedy of errors. We can't find a damn place for them to move in.
Wow. And they specifically want to rent something.
They would like to try New York before they commit full time.
Yeah. Didn't you rent an apartment to Nicki Minaj as well? Or you can't confirm or deny that one either?
That is rumor. I would love to say that was true.
Okay. Yeah, I saw some press on it.
I'll never correct a story unless it's way out of left field.
All right. So we'll just assume that was correct.
It wasn't.
Good.
No, I can tell you it wasn't.
Yeah. I saw a write-up also recently about your listing at 129 East 70th Street. A house that I toured personally, and I absolutely loved that house. I understand it was built during the Civil War, which makes it the oldest house in the Upper East Side Historic District. I mean, that's a pretty beautiful it's like a small house, but it's one of those houses that just blows you away when you're inside. You really feel like it tells a story when you're in there.
I mean, listen, that is the house in my career that if I could live anywhere, that's the house I'm putting my money on.
Really?
I would move there in 2 seconds.
Wow.
I know the sellers really well. And I've said, how about a little bit of seller financing? Because then I would do the deal. They did not bite just yet. But listen, it is the most gorgeous house in my opinion. I think it has everything that a New York home should have, which is history, real story. I think, the people who live there, if you look at how they live their life, I'm like, sign me up and I'll jump in. Like coach put me in, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
So that to me is why that property stands out to me so much. But
it's not the burning lantern in the front.
No.
Because that's a really nice touch.
Oh, it's nice. I mean, it's an interesting house because it's really not a large home, but it is a little sibling next to some amazing homes. Right, the iconic Mellon House. You have some amazing neighbors on the block. And if you really want to be in East 70th Street between Park and Lex, or between Lex and the Park, good luck getting in for, less than $12 million. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting opportunity.
That Mellon house, when it sold, however many years ago, it sold for like $40 million. It's crazy.
Wild.
Yeah.
And then the buyers did a full gut. So
they did.
They did a full gut.
Wow. My understanding, and don't worry, we can edit this out if you can't talk about it, but was that you tried to put a deal together for that Mellon house. Are you allowed to tell that story?
I'll just say that I had a buyer who was ready, willing, and able to make a big play for that home out of just sheer love for the story of the house. Again, going back to stories and also going back to the architecture of the home. You walk past that house and you're transported to, it could be to France, it could be to the UK. It is just really reminiscent of something that you would find over in Europe, not so much in New York. And interestingly enough, there were 3 homes similar to 129 East 70th Street that were knocked down to build that house. So the listing that we have now is the last structure of that assortment of townhomes. But yes, our play to buy that home was completely turned down, and at a significant number above what they paid for it.
And did they let you at least tour it before they just threw your offer in the garbage?
No, I have not been in that house.
Wow.
Ever.
Wow. I mean, that house, I've walked by that house so many times because I live 2 blocks away, and it's got to be my favorite house in all of New York. It's an absolute marvel, that house.
Well, I'll take the staff house next door.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you can take the big one.
No, but like you said, it's like what is it? It's a triple lot.
Yeah, it's got pretty amazing.
Like elevated outdoor spaces. It's pretty incredible, and I love the security wall.
Yeah, it's
in front
gorgeous.
Of it. I love that.
No, it's pretty fun. It's not so secure, I'll tell you. I like I said, I'm friendly with the owners of the house next door, and so the one we're listing. There was a dinner party in the middle of COVID when it was legal to do so. So I went over, and the way that security wall kind of abuts the neighboring townhouse, it's kind of on the stoop. So theoretically,
you can climb up the stairs and jump
in, which happened. So we showed up for dinner, and there was, this, homeless lady hanging out in the courtyard of this mega mansion, and she had it totally figured out. So I called the owners. I said, "Hey, does this happen a lot?" And they said, "Listen, she's been there for 2 weeks." I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "You won't believe it."
They've been watching on the cameras? Wow.
They said to me, "You won't believe it." She goes up the stoop, jumps into the courtyard, sleeps for the night, and when she wants to leave, she opens a door and walks out the front door of the security wall.
Oh, smart
cookie. She has it figured out. Anyway, she's no longer there.
I feel like they're never in this house because the lights are always off. So would they just see this on their surveillance?
I have no. My neighbors next door were the ones who were observing this, and they said it's just the funniest thing we've ever seen.
My goodness.
Yeah, I don't know if the owners of the Mellon house are aware, but I'm sure they must be aware.
Only in New York. Huh?
Only in New York.
So I know you talked about the deal that you did at 150 Wooster Street. I was going to ask you separately which transaction you're most proud of in your career, the one that really is the most memorable. If it was 150 Wooster Street, we can move on. But if there's another one that comes to mind, I'd love to hear the story.
I mean, listen, I don't know that 150 was even the most memorable transaction. It's just kind of a funny story of, listen, the only way to do things right and to learn how to do business is to mess up a ton.
Yep.
Make all the mistakes you can. Because if you read it in a textbook, it's not going to become a lesson. You have to really fuck up.
So what was the biggest mistake you ever made?
Oh my God, there's been so many. I've had some crazy deals that have just been like, why did I do it that way? Right? I'll think about that and we can come back to that. But I would say the most memorable deals for me are really ones where I make a really great new connection and a new friend. And I can tell you, like my first year in the business, I sold a few pieces of real estate to this family from Turkey. And I was so young. It's crazy. we're still really good friends. I mean, I had lunch with the family yesterday. They're in town. They have become such a part of my life. I've traveled the world to meet them on vacation. Every time they're in New York City, we have multiple meals together. And to me, that's the reason why I love what I do. It becomes a family that really takes on its own, and it's not necessarily just transactions, right? Now, I must confess, some of their investments have been pretty bad, right? I was young. I said, don't buy this, though, and they said, we really want this.
So you advised them.
I advised them, but listen, I would have probably said, like, don't do this.
What made it a bad investment, looking back on it?
I think when you buy from a developer, you have to be really careful of where throughout the sales process you're actually buying the property.
Yes.
Right? I think if you're at a point where they just want to be done with the property and they want to move on, great moment to buy. Great moment to get a great deal. But if you're buying in the beginning, yes, you get the pick of the litter. But you also have to make sure that they have the financial wherewithal and the capital to actually see the project through. And you also have to make sure that the climate you're buying in is going to hold, right? So if you buy in the beginning and then you, for example, are buying right before COVID, and that's a bad example because COVID really was a great market.
Yeah.
And the market really rebounded quickly. You want to make sure that your sponsors are aligned with your intention and your intention of making money and making a good investment. But if you buy super early and then they cut prices 20, 30%, that's not so good.
I'm with you. I like the way you think about all this stuff, like the way you think about homes, the way you think about storytelling, the way you think about relationships, the way you think about the result of the deal being the relationship that comes out of it. I think that's a really kind of, it's an elegant approach to the business, whereas I find that there is a tremendous amount of riffraff in the broker world. So
yeah, I listen, and I scratch my head, and I'm just like, don't push so hard. Don't be so salesy. It's just, what are you getting out of it?
Right.
But also, listen, if you take a long-term approach, it's your one deal can grow to 5. It can grow to 10. So you have to, people first, right? Not necessarily relationships first, but relationships, I think, are the more important step above people first, right? Because I just think that makes a huge difference. And really, just do right by people. Just don't force them to buy something. Don't, be all greasy.
I'm with you.
I don't know. It drives me crazy.
I'm definitely with you.
We've been on the other side of some deals where it got a little heated, if you recall.
Yeah, well, that wasn't really thanks to me.
No, you had nothing to do with that. And it's those experiences where I say to myself, 1, treat people like human beings, and 2, we're all in this together.
Yeah, so it's, like an aggressive approach or an overly aggressive approach will oftentimes get a deal done, but it won't give you the retention that you want from the relationship. It won't give you that repeat business. I would say that there have been mistakes I've made in my career where I've gotten deals done, but the clients won't work with me again after that.
Now I'm taking your job for a second. Do you think that perhaps they thought that your intentions were not aligned with theirs and that you were looking at it towards the dollar amount of what the percentage off of the purchase price equates in your pocket, or not so much?
In the specific case that comes to mind was I had a deal I was working on, and the buyer came in their second showing after they had already made an offer, and we already had an accepted offer. And they were like, oh, can the seller repair this? And can the seller fix this? And can the seller remove this? And can the seller do this? And I just said yes to everything. Like, yeah, we'll take care of it. Don't worry. We'll get it taken care of. And then when the seller saw the contract with these sort of added provisions and improvements, he was like, what the fuck is this? And I was trying to help him feel like it's, this is standard. We just,
Did you represent both sides?
No, I did not.
Okay.
So this was, it was a hairy situation because I had basically made promises that I wasn't in a position to make. And it was a tremendous learning lesson for me that, yesing people to death, which is very common in aggressive sales, it can really go the other way on you. And we got a deal done, and, the deal closed and the check cleared, but, that client won't look my way again. This was a long time ago, but even still, like, this is the type of thing. This is what happens. Part of the lessons that we learned, going through that process. So, but my approach has always been something of a bit more empathy than, that aggressive push. Like buying homes, selling homes is a very emotional business. It's not like buying real estate where you just use your brain, and if the numbers make sense, you do the deal. In our case, we're selling lifestyle. We're selling that next place. We're selling that chapter to the story. So I think you have to really calibrate to the individual you're working with, and the way you talk about it, it's very clear that that's quite a significant element of your approach. Calibrating to the person, calibrating to the home. So
I mean, listen, I also think like I'm not the broker for everybody. Right? Like you're not the broker for every single type of buyer. But I think it's interesting. I think every buyer finds the broker that they should work with. And it's just a personality thing.
Well, thankfully, New York it's such a melting pot of cultures and creeds and races and religions that there's literally a broker for everybody. Like you could be the weirdest person on the street, but you could still be a real estate agent and you could still serve a demographic that's, similar to yourself. So that's kind of one of the things that makes New York incomparable to any other city.
Now, what was your weirdest showing you've ever had? I need to know this. I think this is a very interesting. Have you had any that you've laughed and you scratched your head and you're like, "What just happened?"
Yeah, I'll tell you. I'll tell you like weird showing and also just weird story overall. I had a townhouse on 81st Street that was available for sale and rent. It was available for rent like at $30,000 a month, and a guy gives me a call one day. He goes, "Hi, this is so and so. I'm the global head of equities for X company, and I want to come and see this house. I'm going to come with my partner." So I said, "Okay." So he shows up to the house with what was very clearly a prostitute. And, he's dressed in a beautiful suit, beautiful tie, really well put together. But he walked into this house with a prostitute. And he takes one look around. He shows the woman around. And he's like, "Okay, do you like this house?" He goes, "Yeah." He looks at me and he goes, "I'll take it." And I'm like, "Okay, so what's the story here?" He goes, "Yeah, listen, my wife and I were separating, this and that. I want to rent a new place. This is my partner. We're going to rent it together. Can we rent it in her name?" Like very, very strange. So all I said to him was like, "Listen, all I can do is present it." So all I can do is present it to the client and come back to you. So he, what we did was we arranged this specific client of mine who I've worked with for a long time. He wants an interview for every tenant. So before the tenant is approved, he invites them to the house. They sit down, they have a coffee. They just, it's like a little interview. I'm sitting in the room too. So he had him come over and he liked the guy. So the guy said to him, and this was pre-2019 when the laws all changed, but he said, "I'll pay the entire lease up front. I want it for a year." And he was going to pay us 15%. So he does just that. He wires the full amount. It was like $360,000 plus our fee on top of that. And he's supposed to move in about 4 weeks. A week before he's supposed to move in, he calls me and he goes, "Hey, I don't think I need that house anymore, so I think I want to back out of the lease." So I said, "Okay, you wired an entire year up front already." And he goes, "Yeah, but you know what? I broke up with that girl and, I don't need the house. And I'm thinking maybe I'll get back together with my wife." So I was like, "Okay, so what do you want me to do?" And he goes, "Listen, talk to the landlord, see what he might be willing to do to help me out. No pressure." To him, this guy, money was no object. So I said, "Okay." So I went back to the seller, or to the landlord, I should say. And he said, "I'll tell you what, tell him I'll give him 150 grand back. I'm going to keep the rest for my inconvenience. And then you put it back on the market, you rent it to someone else." So I said, "Okay." So I worked that deal out. He got 150 grand back, said goodbye to the guy. And a week later, I rented the house to someone else who also took it for a year and paid 15%. So it was like the wildest.
That's a great deal.
It was a great deal. It was a wild situation. It was definitely like the oddest situation I've seen in that
Do you ever
context.
have you Googled the original tenant to see what he's up to today? You
Yeah,
should do a little check.
I tried to. So I was still in communication with this guy. He turned out to be absolutely crazy. I think he was a drug addict, but and also like there was more than one time where he showed up at my office, and I smelled alcohol in his breath, like just a real like. Just a wild card.
Up and down.
He's a finance guy, it just, he was crazy. And I actually was working on a deal for him at 1049 Fifth. It was a gorgeous, gorgeous apartment. And this goes to like one of the mistakes I made in my career. Even though the guy was nuts, still a mistake nonetheless. He had sent me a REBNY when he was applying for the townhouse that he backed out of. The REBNY showed substantial assets. So when he wanted to place an offer at 1049 Fifth, I just used the same REBNY. I recycled it. And after I sent the offer, I forwarded him the offer. He got me on the phone, and he just completely reamed me out. He's like, I didn't authorize you to send this. How could you send it? And I'm like, okay, but they're going to counter you. What's the difference? Like, it's got enough of what you need.
Well, was the root complaint from his perspective that it's like I'm getting naked and then I'm negotiating?
No, it wasn't that at all, because it wasn't that detailed.
Because I'm always surprised when people feel that way.
For
it's like
him,
you can have all the money in the world, but if you're only going to pay $1, you're only going to pay $1.
Right. For him, he was just upset that he didn't authorize me to distribute that information directly, at least. So that's what I'm saying. Like, he was a little crazy, but it still taught me, an attention to detail lesson, and I've had a few of those lessons in my career. Now I like, pride myself on being very, very detail oriented and like, really strict with certain disciplines like follow-ups and things like that. Because I just feel like I've made a few too many mistakes in that context. So I have only a few more questions.
That's a pretty crazy story.
Yeah, that was a mess, but it was great. It was a great experience altogether.
So you basically made, what was it, 30%?
I basically made 30%. It was like $45,000, on 2 rentals within the span of a couple of weeks.
Not bad.
Yeah, it was pretty great. It was at a time where I certainly needed it. I was like newly married. It was like perfect.
But listen, I would say on that theme, I did not think that was where the story was going.
Where did you think it was going?
So I had an experience at 44 Late Street down in Tribeca. Love the sellers. The sellers are awesome people. We're still really, really close. But one day we had a request to show the house and, show the apartment to this guy. He pulls up. He's dressed the part, right? He says, I'm from San Francisco. I invest in tech, X, Y, and Z. Comes to the house, looks at it, loves it, and says, listen, let's keep in touch. I'm going to think about it. I'm headed to Teterboro right now, and let's talk when I land. I said, cool. So I walked him out. I walked him to his car. We talked a little bit about tech for like 2 minutes, and he looked at me like he was super surprised that I knew what I was talking about, right? So leave that there for a second. A couple weeks go by. He gives me the runaround, but no different than what a typical person in his shoes would do, because we see it often. People are really busy, and housing sometimes is not their main priority at the moment. And I'm going to really jump to this story because this could be the whole episode.
We got time. I got time.
Well, it's a crazy story. But so he comes back, he says, an email back and forth. He says, listen, when you're in LA for a client, I want you to come see my house. I might want to sell it, but I think I have the best house in West Hollywood. The views, the this and that. I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. Everyone thinks they have the best house. So he says, he gives me an offer, decent offer, it's fine. He then comes back to New York, sees the property one more time, brings somebody to see the house, flies back to London now. And he said to me, hey, by the way, he hadn't left yet to go to London. He says, listen, I want to get tickets for something. Do you have an experienced guy
Mm.
in New York? And I'm like, yeah, I got an experienced guy. He's great.
Do you really have a good
Yeah.
experienced guy?
This guy's cool.
His name is Neil. Get that number when you
No, I will. He's amazing. Anything you need, he can get you tickets for it, or get you experiences that you can't even buy tickets for. Super cool.
What does he charge for that?
It depends.
Yeah.
It really just depends. So listen, so I connect him to the guy, and they go for, the potential buyer calls Neil and says, hey, Neil, like, let's go meet at, it was Gramercy Park Tavern. Let's have like a drink and let's like shoot the shit. I like to meet people I do business with. Okay, no problem. They go meet. Neil says to me, oh yeah, dude, he's a great guy, blah, blah, blah. So a week goes by. He goes to London finally. Comes back. He's on the plane and he emails Neil and says, Neil, I need 2 tickets for the Mets season opener at, whatever what's the arena now? I know Shea Stadium. What is
Citi
it?
Field.
Citi Field. Okay, I'm such an old school New Yorker.
I'm not even.
I'm not there. Yeah,
guy,
neither am I. This is the wrong crew. We're talking about theater for 30 minutes.
Right. It's fine. We weren't recording that.
Yeah.
Time.
Okay. Good.
We were, but not in
That's
in the quality.
Anywho, he's on the plane. He says, I need 2 tickets. Neil says, no problem. Let me hook you up. He lands. He says, dude, I left my wallet in my suitcase and I checked it and they lost my luggage. But and Neil says, no problem, dude. Like, let me get you the tickets and you just pay me back when it's time. The guy shockingly says, no, I don't like to start off relationships that way. Let's figure something else out. So one day I'm getting my shoe shined at the Mark. The Mark Hotel, they have the John Lobb shoe shine section outside of Frederick Fekkai, whatever, the whole thing.
We should be going together to get a shoe
No, we can, but there's only one chair there. But I'm down to do it at Jim's on 59th Street. It's far better.
Yeah, I'll usually go to the leather spa.
Yeah, that's good. But Jim's is where it's at. Anyway, so I'm sitting on the chair and I get a text message from Neil saying, dude, do you know who this guy is? And I'm like, no, what do you mean? He goes, go look at your fucking email. So I look at my emails, I'm getting my shoe shined. And you know how you see the alias, the name of the person who's sending it, and then you click through and you actually look at the email address and handle. It was 2 separate names. This guy's name was Mark Karam Liu. Okay, you might have to beep this part. I'll tell you why. It doesn't matter. And then the email address was Mark Petherbridge. Okay, so we Googled this guy. He is wanted for human trafficking, okay? All these crazy things, total fraud. But I don't understand in our business how someone thinks they can get fraud. How can they get one over you, right? You're not going to buy an apartment without actually buying it. It's impossible. So Neil is a psycho. He does full investigation. He's online. He's emailing people. But if you Google this guy, it comes up with crazy complaints. People on Facebook are chiming in about how this guy defrauded them on this, and this.
It's like the Tinder swindler.
No, it's crazy. So then one day, Neil wakes up with an inbound message from someone on Facebook saying, you and I need to talk about this guy. I need to give you the full story. So Neil calls the girl. The girl gets on the phone and says, listen, bad news bears. You're probably going to get a phone call from the FBI tomorrow. So sure enough, tomorrow rolls around. He gets a phone call from the FBI. I get a phone call from the FBI.
Oh, my God.
This guy is crazy. And they said to us, this guy keeps getting arrested and going to prison, but somebody keeps bailing him out. And we can't figure out why and all these things. And from the furthest we got in this process before we let the whole thing go was that it's a really crazy story. He was bringing young people to these apartments for showings and trying to recruit young underage men and women, right? He was trying to do that to me in theory, to then bring them to kind of package them up and sell them to in my case, really rich old men or kind of a crazy thing.
Wow.
So this went on for a long time. So there was a moment in which I would not do showings or open houses on my own.
You felt a little...
This guy, because he tried to come to one of my open houses. And I told the doorman, I said, don't let this dude up. It was crazy.
Listen, I'm happy to be your private security when you need it.
No, it was crazy. But my point being is there's a lot of kooky experiences. This went on for like 4.5 months.
Wow.
Months.
That's
so
crazy.
I don't know if he's still out there, but if he is, watch out.
Yeah. There's always weirdos and weird situations, like that first buyer at the townhouse just disappeared.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, they had a good reason, though.
No, they didn't.
I think so.
They had a terrible reason. Their reason was that they were concerned about flooding in New York City.
Oh, well, there was no flooding during the Great Floods. I thought it was everything else going on in the world.
No, I mean, I thought what the real reason was that the yen, during like the 2 weeks that we had a contract out, the yen had actually weakened against the dollar. And the Japanese are always trying to save face. They're not the type to, admit when there's financial constraint. And I only know that just from learning it from my father, who grew up in Tokyo. So it's like, to him, like when I was explaining the situation to him, just, kind of catching up, and he was like, oh, this is what's actually going on.
They're not coming back.
Yeah, he's like, they're not coming back. They probably lost a ton of money, and they just don't have the capacity to make this purchase anymore. It's like, wow, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Listen, I thought it was a pretty peculiar buyer, if that makes any sense. Because I was there for the first showing that they came through.
Yes.
And they were all over the place the whole time. So I don't know if they were,
Define all over the place.
The wife wanted one thing, the husband wanted the other, the son wanted something different. And I could not read what their intention was.
Yeah. And were they speaking Japanese the whole time?
Yeah. But you can kind of tell based on like the tone and tenor of someone's voice, and also the body language. But I was like, I don't know what they're doing here. But also they were looking at various properties that were completely unrelated to one another. I don't know.
I find that when it comes to the Asian languages, it's impossible to decode what they're saying.
Yeah.
Any Latin language, you can get a sense of what they're talking about, at least if they're happy or they're not happy.
Well, they'll say I hate you with a smile on their face.
Right, but if you're in a showing and someone's like speaking Mandarin, you just no way to figure out what they're talking about or if they like what they see. Unless they have very clear visual body language, which in most cases I feel like they don't.
Most Americans do that.
Yeah, most Americans give themselves away completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would
except
say
for
so.
you. You definitely don't do that.
Do I? Do
no,
I not?
You haven't given yourself away yet.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
there's no innuendo in that.
That's because we're not drinking.
I know. Dim the lights. No, I'm just kidding.
So let me ask you this. Where do you spend most of your day-to-day time when you're not showing properties? I know you don't have like a set office. So where do you like to spend most of your time?
It's a really good question. No, I to be honest with you, I try and schedule my days so efficiently so that I'll do a sprint of showings for 5 hours and I'll try and park myself, somewhere. And sometimes it could be, our headquarters down in Soho.
I've noticed that when you are at HQ, you are on the third floor in a small round table, kind of like away from everybody else.
I just don't want people to come over and stop me as I'm in the middle of writing a novel.
Right.
And I get very distracted. So I'm either there. I'll go to one of these clubs in the city and kind of find a cozy, quiet corner and do work. I don't know about you. I can't get any work done at home, so I don't even bother with that anymore. But I'm all over the place. And the joke of what I'm trying to say is really I try and be efficient, but when you get a request to show, you just got to do it.
Yeah, you just got to do it, of course.
So I spend most of my time working in the back of the car, like between a barf bag and my computer because I get so car sick.
Do you?
Yeah, but that's never happened. But no, but seriously, I'm really all over the place.
It's because you're it's not I would say it's not that you get car sick, it's because you're looking at your phone. Yeah. When you're staring down at your phone, you get nauseous from it while you're in the car.
Totally.
So try your next car ride without looking at your phone and see how you feel.
Oh, no, but that I'm not getting any work done.
Yeah, but
because there goes the office hours for the day.
You do your work when you're at a red light.
Yeah, exactly. That's like the 15 minutes in an intermission. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So you're mostly in the office, is that right?
I'm mostly here. For me personally, for my own creativity, for my own work, I need a space. I need a place that I can just come and do my thing. I do a lot of things that take away from the business of lead gen and showings because I'm always working on different creative initiatives. Like, for example, this podcast is something that I, produce and edit myself. And I think that's because over the years, I have seen the effect of not having my hand directly on the content that I'm a part of. So, it's something that, it's just not a skill I want to surrender just to anyone else. So with that, I need a space. I used to work from home, and then when we had our second kid, I just couldn't do it anymore. I had to get out of there. And so now I have a little overhead, but that's not,
it keeps you on your toes.
Yeah.
Is what I find.
Listen, a few good deals pays for itself.
How do you feel about the market right now?
I think that the market is peculiar. It's interesting, but and I've said this many times, I really, appreciate, Ryan's sentiment that the market shouldn't dictate your success. It should dictate your strategy. So, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to stop working because the market's tumultuous and weird? No, we got to keep going. We got to keep moving. There's no market you can't do business in. And sometimes it just takes a little longer. I would say the one thing I've taken away from this market over the last, 18 months is that I've never seen days on market as high as it really is right now, especially for some of the higher end product, like townhouses, for example. Like a townhouse, it took us 15 months to sell 159 East 61st Street, but we sold it over ask. So it's a deal is still there to be made. It's just, you got to be a little bit more patient, a little bit more resilient,
I mean, for us, we just really have to, hold on to the clients. Yeah. And that's something that's not particularly easy.
Yeah.
I last week I got an email from my client. They kind of looped me into a broker who said, "Hey, I just want to let you know I love your house. It would be great if we can talk about some strategies." So my client, being a total gentleman, was like, "Hey, okay, I'm looping in my broker Chase. I'm sure he'd love to hear your strategies. Whatever." I responded in 5 minutes and I said, "Funny you should reach out. I'm there tomorrow for 3 showings. I would love for you to come see the house and see if it works for any of your clients. And I'd also love to hear some of your strategies." Crickets.
Of course.
Followed up 4 times. Crickets.
Of course.
It's crazy.
Yeah, no, everyone, that's very, very common. We're all reaching out to soon to be expired listings.
I take note though.
I've always had a policy that I will not go after any listings that are represented by a colleague. So when I was at Element, I would never go after Element listings. Now that I'm at Serhant, I don't go after any Serhant listings.
Go after Element listings.
I do go after Element listings, and I've gotten a couple of them already. So
I like that.
I'm pretty good.
I think we got one that we just sold.
We did
too.
Yes, we did. And they tried for a year themselves too before they handed the reins over to us. So let me ask you this. I only have a couple more questions for you, and then I'll have you out of here. I know you have a dinner reservation. So without giving away your secrets, if you don't wish to, I know, me personally, I find that, no two people cook the same dish the same way. So it's I could buy Thomas Keller's cookbook, but I'm not going to cook the way they do at the French Laundry. So without giving away too many secrets.
That's a real bummer for your wife. But
I cook really well. My wife's very, very happy about that. But here's my question to you. How do you generate leads and new business? It's clear that the clients that you work with are of another caliber. And that's, I'm sure that's admirable to a lot of the new and aspiring real estate agents. So what's some of you, what are some of your more unique methods of generating leads and new business?
It's a very difficult thing for me to answer, but I will answer in the sense that I'll preface this whole thing by saying I ultimately think you just have to know when to turn left and not right. It's really that kind of simple, if that makes any sense.
That's a really good line.
The reason I say that is I did not set out to have this business. I didn't set out to have these clients. I came into this business after pretty much a failed tech startup. Ryan was my client. We hit it off, and I got into the business. I really got into the business because I admired him, and I really liked him, and we had a great relationship. And, I didn't say, oh, my God, I need to sell, only above, apartments above $10 million or townhouses above $10 million. I did my business. I put my head down. I worked super, super hard. And I think those early days are the most defining moments of your career. I will tell you, my rental commissions of $500 meant more to me than some of these commissions we have now, because it was the fuel that I needed to get to where I was going. But ultimately, like I said, if you're super authentic, you're genuine, you really want to build long relationships, you're going to grow with your clients, and your clients are going to grow with you. So I just find a lot that people, and I have people who work with me, work for me, who are just so about the check, right? Like they're focused on, well, I don't have enough time right now for this rental client. And I say, no problem. But just keep in mind, you do the rental, there's all of this over here. So don't think about it for the commission. Think about it long term. Like think about it like you're planting a garden and the first season it dies, but next season when the sun comes out, it's going to grow again. So I just find it's not about having, a master playbook. It's about doing things authentically to yourself, honestly to who you are, right by your clients, and just knowing how to follow your path and not define your path. Don't box yourself in. I find so many people just say, I'm only going to do this because this is what I want. Yeah. But just trust the process, trust the journey.
Yeah, and don't be singularly focused.
Yeah, I just be willing to pivot, be willing to do shit that makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Not too uncomfortable, but uncomfortable.
I think that's great. That's really, really great advice. Like you can cut open an apple and you can count how many seeds are inside, but you can't count how many apples you're going to get from planting a single seed.
That's great. I'm going to get that tattooed.
So, yeah, that was, and the truth is one of my questions I had for you was what advice would you generally give to someone who is directly influenced by your accomplishments? Like I find, there's always people who like read about us on LinkedIn or wherever it is and they reach out. So typically what is like that piece of advice you give to that young agent is like, oh, do you have space on your team? Or I'm thinking of getting into real estate. I feel like, in Judaism, when someone wants to convert to Judaism, the rabbi is supposed to convince them that it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
So
There's a very funny Sex in the City episode. I don't know if you've seen it.
No, but tell me.
No, I'll send it to you. You'll watch it. Long story short, the rabbi just would not meet with her whatsoever. And made it impossible. And after months of just trying to break through, he says, okay, you've worked hard enough. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I take the same approach in real estate. I try to people say, I'm really interested in getting into real estate. I'm like, are you sure? Because it really takes a long time to build a good fluid success.
On that, and we'll go back to what your question was, how long do you think it really takes?
I think it depends on the person, depends on the individual.
If you're going to extrapolate and kind of
2 to 5 years to build a really good, solid, fluid flow of business. Until the point where your network is feeding you. For me, it took me 5 years before my network really started feeding me. I started in the business when I was 20, and I was still really, really immature, arrogant in a lot of ways. I was humbled by my experiences and by, the mistakes I made along the way. So, yeah, for me, 5 years was my journey to get to, a place where I felt okay, I've arrived, but I would say 2 years at least. And I think that one of the biggest mistakes I made was I didn't join a team when I first started. I was independent. So I feel like a lot of time was wasted. Whereas as a leader now with my team, my goal is to just help them reach their success at a little bit more of an accelerated pace by supporting them and helping them understand some of the intricacies that you normally would only learn from, the deal making itself.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue with our business is that everybody sees the success.
Yes.
And they just don't see the darkness of the job. It's not the easiest business. There's also really low lows. And, I think probably media has contributed to that a lot. I think $1 Million Listing and other shows that we are so lucky to kind of have, be rubbing shoulders with, if you will, because it has helped us.
Yes.
There's also a lot in that allows everyone to wrongfully think, oh, I can do this. And people want the glory and the fame and not, they don't want to sweat.
People don't see the sweat. That's why, to your point, media has removed the hard part from the frame.
Yeah, for sure. Which is an interesting idea. I think going forward, you should talk about that with a lot of people.
Well, that's part of the reason why I'm doing this. I feel like a part of me wanted to also create a bit of an avenue of vulnerability.
For sure.
In the content, something that's, I when I first started doing video, doing it personally myself, editing everything, like that's where like that fifth year happened for me, was in like going all in as a creator, stopping to try and be the real estate agent that everyone else was trying to be, and just focusing on myself, on my strengths, kind of like removing my weaknesses from the equation, or bestowing them on a partner at the time.
So I would say, to go back, I would say my like greatest piece of advice would be to be yourself, because everyone else is taken, and just do what you're going to do and do it well.
Right. I like the way you do what you do.
No.
I feel I've learned a few things in our conversations.
I just feel like if you try to be transactional and you try to be super salesy, it comes off as disingenuous.
Yes.
And
I also find that, a classy individual, a cultured individual almost knows not to go there in the conversation, not to go too heavy.
I don't think there's enough of those in this business.
There isn't. Like there's 40,000 agents in Manhattan, but the community of us that are seeing each other on the other side of the deal sheet is actually pretty small. And that leads to another thing that Ryan said once, is that, clients come and go, but it's actually the relationships that we have with the other agents that last forever. And if we burn those bridges, then we'll never be able to get deals done.
Yeah, listen, I think there's definitely a handful of brokers that if I have control over it, which we generally don't, I just won't transact with.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, there's plenty of brokers who are like on the no hire list at a lot of these companies, some of the biggest names, and that's just because they've
Should we share this?
Yeah, we can if you want. I'll bleep them out later, but like, she's on the no hire list at Compass, at Serhant, at Brown Harris Stevens.
What about he's running out of options countrywide.
Yeah, exactly. He keeps trying to rape his secretary and getting in trouble.
It's terrible.
I'll bleep.
I think it'll be fun if you bleep the names, but not the reactions.
Bleep keeps trying to rape his secretary.
Bleep.
Well, Chase, this has been a pleasure. I really appreciate you. No,
listen, I'm back annually, so just let's keep doing this.
Yeah,
I had a great time.
I would love to do a follow up.
Yeah, anytime.
In like a year from now, and see how things are going. But we got to work on some more business together. I like spending time with you. I sure
think so. I was sitting here thinking, well, why don't we work together?
Yeah.
But I don't know.
We can
have to figure this out.
Yeah, we can figure something out. But I think, I like the time we spend together generally. I genuinely like really enjoy our conversations, and I feel like I come away learning something a little bit. I really like the way you think about home selling and that whole process, and I like the way you think about storytelling and the way you think about relationships. So there's a lot to be learned in everybody that we speak with. But I retain a lot of value for this conversation, and I appreciate that.
Me too. Me too.
So to many more deals, successful transactions together, and
above ask,
and many more podcasts together.
I totally agree.
You got to get in front of the camera a little bit. You got such a good smile.
Listen, that was a lot of hard work.
I was going to say, those pearly whites. How much did you pay for those?
A lot. And it's funny you say that. After I did this, right, which was actually. It was, you sell a big apartment, you buy a watch, right?
I was going to say, are you wearing a Reverso?
No, this is very fun. This is I collect things, right? That's like kind of my thing. But it's funny because I really like the hunt more. The chase. So this took me 2.5 years to find.
Wow.
Long time. It's an asymmetric tank, and they originally came in the 30s. And this one was reproduced in 1996, and they only made 300. But there's probably, and they're numbered, there's probably really only about 120 that are...
Which number's yours?
...in existence. I didn't get to choose because I was lucky. Mine's 148. So if you ever see that on the market, it's stolen, and give it back to me.
I feel like 148 is a pretty good number.
I think it's okay. It's fine.
It'd be nice if you got like 18.
Right. Or, 12 for me is my number I always go for. But this was a process, and it was a process that taught me to enjoy the process
of locating things.
Something. But so I found another example. Something felt wrong to me when I bought it. So I said, listen, guys, you're taking this back. But where was I going with this before? We were going somewhere.
You said that, you bought a watch. So
right.
I asked if you were wearing a Reverso.
No, so
it looks like a Reverso.
It does a little bit. But anywho, I never smiled a lot just because it just wasn't my thing. Just was.
Is it an insecurity?
I didn't have the best teeth, but not that matters. And I went to see, Dr. Latucci, Lowenberg, Latucci, Cantor. They're like by far the best, and they're great friends of mine. And he said to me, you can go buy the watch, but the best thing you're going to have is like a killer smile.
So what do they charge for teeth per tooth?
I'm not going to tell you how many teeth I did.
It looks like you did all of them.
Shut the fuck up. I did close to all of them. But I think it was like 3,800 tooth.
Oh, wow.
So, but listen, so after
you
recovering...
didn't want to like fly to Istanbul or something?
No. It's funny. If I'm flying to Istanbul, it's going to cost me more on the flights than it is on the savings to get my hair done in Istanbul. Between that and the hotel, I'm like, no,
I know
thanks.
a few people who did the hair thing in Istanbul.
No, but they're not staying at the Four Seasons.
No.
And they're not flying business.
So the way you're doing it is going to be very expensive.
I don't want to be miserable. But anyway, after I did my teeth, I stayed at the Four Seasons.
Wow, good
because
for
I
you.
just was like, I'm doing it.
In the city.
In the city, I'm like, I'm going to recover nicely.
Suite 4810. That's my room at the Four Seasons.
Suite 4810.
Yeah.
The good news is that they are reopening within the next 6 months,
really
8 months.
Hope so.
So we'll have lunch and drinks in the bar.
Yeah, the Red Bar.
The Red Bar is amazing.
Or we'll meet. You know what? It's probably the best breakfast in the city.
I agree. Now Coco's is really competitive, but
do they do a good breakfast at Coco's?
We're gonna go. It is the new quiet power breakfast.
Listen, if you pay for all the social club memberships, I will be your partner.
No, come anytime. But I want to get you to join Coco's. But seriously, you have to come.
I think I am going to join Coco's. I like the vibes in there.
So what is the significance on 4810?
So I booked a room there to propose to my wife in, and that was the suite they gave us. And it was just amazing. We just really loved it.
Did you
the setting was incredible.
Did you pick the room intentionally?
I looked at a couple of rooms.
Floor plans?
No. Like when I wanted to pick a room, initially I wanted to propose to her in the Red Bar. I'd made a whole video about our relationship, and I was going to display it, on the screen there. And they were like, "We're not going to let you do that, no matter what." So I was like, "Well, do you have any other option? Like, this hotel is a special one. I really want to do this here." And they're like, "Yeah, you could spend the money and rent a room." So I was like, "Okay, fine. So I'll do that." So
can I rent a room and do what I want to do in the Red Bar?
No, they wouldn't let me do it. So, and I think it's because they didn't control the content on that board. Like, it belongs to whoever their advertisers are.
Yeah, right. It was their advertising partners.
All this stuff.
But listen, I'm not a fan of hotels that have, those windows that have, when you walk to your room, you're being sold, this diamond, that hat from Loro Piana, this chocolate,
I don't
this
really
teddy
like
bear.
that either.
To me, it cheapens the whole thing a bit.
Yeah. Well, it is a union hotel. They have to come up with a lot of ways to cover.
For the union costs.
Yeah. But yeah, that room, we spent our wedding night in that room, the same
So
suite.
it's very meaningful.
Yeah, it's a meaningful room. It's a meaningful hotel. I always loved it there.
It's it's picking very specific rooms. When I was at the Ritz this summer, it's a big hotel. It's a really, really big hotel in Paris. The Ritz in Paris. Thanks for the clarification, because there's a few. But anywho, I said to them, listen, I said, I don't want to come and have to change rooms. So do me a favor. Send me the floor plans of the rooms within my category, and I'll tell you the exact room I want to stay in. I said, we won't have to change that way. Sure enough, they said, no, we can't do that. It's a security issue. And I said, well, when you're in the hotel, you can look at every staircase and behind every single hotel door in the room, there's a floor plan for the entire floor. So I don't know what the security issue is, but anywho, they didn't. Long story short, I ended up moving rooms 4 times.
They just didn't want to take the time to.
They didn't want to take the time to do the. Yeah, exactly. So I said, but it's interesting. In our business, we can look at a floor plan and know really well what works and what doesn't work. So I wasn't sure if that was your experience with 4810.
Well, no, I just saw a couple of rooms that they let me into. But I recently advised a hotel client in Greece that he should be incorporating floor plans because he's got 18 rooms and every single one of them are different. So to offer like that sort of selection, because each room is different, you can also price them all differently. So
you can build a story and a narrative based on each room.
Right. So
it's crazy. People don't think
to do that.
Think things through in a certain way.
Yeah, like he was also like, I never even thought about that, like to do a floor plan, and like they don't have any floor plan designers in Greece, so I'm gonna have to bring one over there.
That's not a bad. It's billable hours, babe.
Yeah,
the flight is how long?
It's like 7.5 hours.
Okay, so you're charging
to
for
Athens.
7.5 hours.
Yeah.
No, it's okay.
That's perfect.
This is super fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for
No,
doing this.
I'll be back, and we'll do more deals, and we'll continue to enjoy each other's personal successes along the way.
Absolutely. Thank you, my friend.
Good to see you, buddy.